that just manages to hook it away. Right-footed shot from Scott McManus. A right-footed shot from Scott McManus. It bears repetition, and he celebrates with the Halifax Town fans because the Shaymen are ahead at Wembley. The ball was cleared to him on the edge of the penalty area. He didn't think twice before firing home with the right foot. It's Halifax Town 1, Grimsby Town 0.
Good afternoon. It is Saturday the 13th of March 2021 and you join this podcast at 25 to 2, just under an hour and a half before kick-off, before the Solihull Moors home game, so there'll be a little bit of build-up pre-match to that, but the main focus of this, my third podcast in my series, is the fact that should Niall Maher be selected in what will be announced in 25 minutes from now, which I assume he will be, it will be his 100th start for the Shaymen. But first things first, we'll just look at some pre-match news. Tom Scargill's just tweeted. He said it's great to see Luke Summerfield back out on the pitch, you know, as part of his fitness journey and returning back to the team. And of course, I'm sure we all agree with that. It is great to see him back out on the grass. I'd imagine injuries are just staying the same. I'd imagine there'll be no word on Ruben Noble-Lazarus. Will somebody like Clarkey make the bench today? I don't know. Solihull coming into this game off the back of just re-employing a previous manager, second time he's been at the Moors for Mark Yates. I think he was also a former player, so we do have that to factor in today after the after what I predicted would have been a defeat midweek against Notts County. We come into this game which on paper, without this managerial setup, would have been, we'd have fought 3 points against some strugglers. But Halifax Town, of course, ever since they were formed, actually, they've always been a club that's struggled against the strugglers and then just beaten top of the league teams. It's happened throughout, as I say, the club's history. So I don't like making predictions with Town, to be honest. If I predict us to win, we lose. So I'd rather just not say. I think we'll struggle. In the interests of the logic that I've sort of put to this, I'm going to say that we'll struggle in this game and just see from there. Tune in as usual, if you can, via the live stream, which will be available on fchalifaxtown.com. 3 o'clock kickoff. So we move on to, as I say, the main reason this podcast has been made today. Should Niall Maher start the match today, which, as captain of the club in Nathan Clark's absence, unless he goes down injured during this warm-up or there has been, some kind of injury in training, which I'd have assumed would have found out via social media already, he will make his 100th start for the club today at 3 o'clock. It'll be his 108th in total. So there's just a few quick things just about Niall Maher. We signed him officially, or his signing was announced officially on the 8th of March 2018. He was one of new manager at the time, Jamie Fullerton's first permanent signings. He then debuted 2 days later in the 3-1 away win at Woking. 2 goals from Matty Kozolo and another one from another fellow debutant who was named on the day just before the start kick-off, Connor Thompson, giving the Shaymen a 3-1 win away there. The first away win under the A.F.C. Halifax Town era of the club. And in that time, of course, that means that you'd have to go back to as late as maybe 2008 for a win for the, in inverted commas, old club. His first goal came in his 25th appearance, and that was in a 2-1 defeat at Havant and Waterlooville on the 3rd of November of the same year, a game that I attended. And again, just to back up the point which I just made a few minutes ago, Town played against strugglers Havant and Waterlooville and put in a very below par performance. Niall Maher's goal, a consolation late on, I think it was in the 87th minute, and then there was maybe 3 or 4 minutes of injury time, but Havant held out for the win. His second goal came roughly a month later, this time in the FA Cup, the second round, which was a 3-1 defeat to Wimbledon, a game in the first half we really should have been leading a good 1 or 2-0. Matty Kozolo again featuring heavily in this game, running from halfway, beating half the Wimbledon team before slipping it past the goalkeeper and onto the post, unfortunately. From there, they came on stronger, as you'd expect from a team that's 2 leagues above. And as I say, Niall Maher got the consolation in that 3-1 defeat. Interestingly, for a long time now, Niall Maher scored a total of 6 goals. Most of them, in the early part of them, or the first 3 or 4, came in defeats. They were just consolations. I say his first goal was against Havant and Waterlooville. Then we had the one against Wimbledon. He scored against Harrogate as well in a 2-1 defeat at the Shea, which was in the FA Cup the following year. But he did like the BT cameras. He scored his 6th and final goal for the Shaymen so far on the 5th of December against Weymouth in the impressive 5-1 win. So, and then along with the first game of the previous season, 2019-20, away at Ebbsfleet in the 4-1 win down there again. A club, another sort of bogey team for the Shaymen are Ebbsfleet. So it was yet another game where we've won away, as I say, a team that we don't usually get a lot from. And that was 4-1. The Weymouth game was 5-1. So hopefully he's now turned a corner and he will he will only score in games which we win rather than in sort of consolations, basically. So, yeah, he's been ever present under a variety of managers. He's played sort of, I want to call him a utility man. He is more of a defender, but he's played in a defensive midfield role. He's played at centre-back, most memorably for me personally, just off the top of my head, when we had an injury. I think it might have been a Matty Brown injury, and he had to fill in at centre-back, and he absolutely marked then A.F.C. filed Danny Rowe out of that game. Danny Rowe, obviously a man who needs no introduction to town fans or fans of non-league in general. Just an absolute goal machine that filed when they, how can I put this, when they were a little bit more stronger in the finance department, shall we say, could fund. Niall Maher for 90 minutes kept him quiet. Town drew 0-0, but I can remember on the day, it was a Tuesday night game, he was certainly man of the match for me in that game, and I think many would have agreed at that time. As I say, he's been a utility man. He's played in defensive midfield. He was rotated a little bit with Josh Staunton under Jamie Fullerton. And to be honest, Pete Wild has last season accommodated both Josh Staunton and Niall Maher. Staunton making, I think he made one more appearance actually than Sam Johnson. He was Town's leading appearance holder last season. I know the season got curtailed into the final third of the season, but Josh Staunton made roughly 46 appearances, 47 appearances. He was ever present in Pete Wild's teams last season, but Fullerton, when he first signed Josh Staunton, he didn't seem to quite decide whether he wanted Staunton or Maher to fill in at a similar position. But all in all, as we say, because he's making his 100th start today, in what will be his 108th appearance, he has only made 7 substitute appearances. For the Shaymen, he's had a couple of short-term injury layoffs, which would then account for why he's come on as sub. Either easing him back in or he's been subbed, etc., etc. So, yeah, well done to Niall Maher. I know it's not much of an achievement, really, in terms of like in terms of being a long-term player, because players play roughly 50 matches a season. There's 46 usually in league, and then you've got a couple in the cups. So it is essentially only really playing 2 full seasons non-stop. But it's just another little fact or stat that we can make for the team today. We've clocked over 400 points as FC Halifax Town at 5th division level, at Vanarama National League level, with the 2-1 win against Notts County on Tuesday. So that's another one, for the record books. We have conceded, I think, 260. Our goals for and against are very, very, very close. I think we've only got a +8 goal difference, but as would be expected, we've accumulated a lot more points in home games than what we have in away games. We've played 4 more away games than we have home games because of this season, the way that games have either been postponed or have had to be rearranged, or we haven't played Dover, or we haven't played Macclesfield. We have played before today's kick-off at home to Solihull, we have played 4 more games away from home than what we have at the Shay. I mean, when was the last game at the Shay even? Maidenhead 3-2. Again, another disappointing 3-2 home defeat. I know Maidenhead were flying high at that time, but they've had, in this last month, they've had a couple of defeats. I think they lost on Tuesday and they lost last Saturday. So at that time, that put them something like 6 or 7 points clear of Town and into the playoffs, and they had 3 games in hand. So they've been now whittled away. So where were I going with this? I can't remember. I can't actually remember. I was just sort of talking through it. Last home game, sorry. Yeah, so it was Maidenhead, the 3-2 defeat again. A below par performance from Town, something that Pete Wild, did speak about in the local media outlets. He was disappointed with that, but Town are riding high at the moment after 2 impressive wins, and let's just hope we can push up into them playoffs. I mean, somebody even pinpointed the fact that Sutton are only 10, 12, 13 points clear of Town. They do have a game in hand on Town. To be honest, I cannot see it, and I don't want to focus too much on that because I just know that's always a recipe for disaster with Halifax Town. We've always, in a fashion, as I don't know what you'd describe it as, small club syndrome, or you've got to just make sure you get to 50 points as quickly as you can, especially as a club like Town. As soon as you can be safe from the drop, then you make yourself another challenge, or you give yourself another objective to get to a certain amount of points in a certain amount of games or whatever. Jake Hyde, just a quick mention of Jake Hyde before I wrap up this very quick podcast. 6 goals now for him in 14 matches. Of course, as always, again, the bad luck with Halifax Town again rearing its head. We always have to have seasons where major players have long-term injuries, or we always have a disruption to the squad. The only time this has not really happened, or I don't really remember it happening, was that sort of dour 2018-19 season where we drew practically 0-0 every week under Jamie Fullerton. Jamie Fullerton's full first and final season. It's the only season I can't remember where we didn't really have any injuries. Michael Duckworth and Matty Brown both did almost a full season each. Jake Hyde in and out of the team due to injury. 6 in 14 matches. Do you know what I mean? It's just under 1 in 2. So, if we had a fully fit Jake Hyde all season and a fully fit Nathan Clark at the back, who knows where we'd have been at this point. We're sort of still saying we're an exciting team. We're 9th in the Vanarama National League. Imagine where we'd have been had those two been fully fit all season. And not to mention the fact that we've now lost Luke Summerfield also. Although, as said earlier in the podcast, he is back on the grass doing a little bit of light running, a little bit of light ball work. So hopefully we'll see him back possibly sooner rather than later. I would personally ease him back in rather than try to rush him back in and break down once more. So that's all that's left to say, really, is the best of luck to Town today. Hopefully we get out of the game. Hopefully we get the result we deserve or we're all wanting, but hopefully we get through it without any injuries or bookings. We've done quite well on the booking front just while we're in that ballpark. Jeff King, as I said in the previous podcast, has gone 9 straight games without even receiving a caution now. Danny Williams, I think, should now be back from his suspension. So hopefully that's another name that can be on Pete Wild's team sheet today.